mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even the score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is on up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is on up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Hello, Night Nation, and welcome to a midweek episode of The Knighted Ones. As we did last week, we're inviting one of our Big 12 buddies to come talk about the game that we're playing this week. This week, we're chopping it up with BYU's own Saturday Warrior, Trevor. I was trying to say that and totally messed that up. Trevor, welcome back. We've talked quite a bit. Some of our viewers know you from both the Big 12 Huddle with content that we've done together and other content that we've done as well. But it excites me to have you on. BYU, we've got some history with. It's not like some of these other Big 12 schools, although OSU, we've got some now. We're still 2-0. We're only one of 4 teams in the Big 12 that are 4-0, and they're not legacy teams against OSU. So we're keeping that going. Calvin still hates me, and we're beating them in everything. So I'll keep that as my good thing as we prepare for this week's meeting. Welcome to the show, and love to hear your thoughts on this week's game.
I'll do you one more. So BYU in football has yet to lose to any of the other 3 that joined the Big 12 with them at football, except for one game to UCF. So UCF has the lone win out of between Cincy, Houston, and UCF over BYU in football. So you can put that feather in your cap for whatever that means either.
They were always crazy games even through history. Like there was that one game where there was like it was either a punt or a kickoff or something, and it was deemed as a turnover and a fumble, and it shouldn't have been. There was it was like the last minute. I can't remember the specifics on what it was, but it was something to do with either a field goal or a kickoff. And this was like 2011, 12, somewhere around there. And it ended up with a BYU win at Provo. But they're always close games. They're always tough games. They're always hard-nosed games. They've always been back to the George O'Leary teams until today. They've always been tough games for both teams. And BYU, we've always respected because it's always been a tough out. One of the few we've played.
Well, hopefully it is, and I mean this respectfully, not a close, hard-fought game. Hopefully it's hard-fought on both sides, but hopefully it's not a close game this weekend for the sake of the Big 12. I'll put it that way. Maybe that's something we can coalesce around this week.
Yeah, well, I think most of Night Nation will say we don't have high expectations for this game. BYU looks like a great team. We went over a little bit in our podcast on what we thought might happen, what might not happen. And you and I, obviously, I told you a little bit about UCF's side of things and where we stand and where we feel this team is or what they're capable of at this point. However, BYU has had another really, really solid season this season. Tell me a little bit about there was a close loss, a really, really close loss that came to the table. Tell me a little bit about that and how Hank Bachmeier has kind of contributed to the success at BYU, because obviously you had a much heralded quarterback last year that went somewhere else. Hank Bachmeier came in, stepped into his shoes, and has continued the success. So do you see him more as a game manager? How much has he contributed to that? Or, what's his role within the offense?
Well, Hank hasn't really done much for BYU. In fact, he was our rival when he was at Boise State, but his little brother Bear, on the other hand,
no. Wow. We played Hank. I'm so sorry, man. I'm losing my mind.
It's okay. Hey, no, fair mistake.
Bear. Yes, yeah. That's why I remember Hank from BYU. We played him too and beat him. Just saying.
So no, that's all good. Yeah, so Bear he has been a revelation, and it was similar to UCF, probably not quite to the same extent, but we had, the quarterback battle going through fall camp, and he transferred to BYU after spring camp when at Stanford when they fired their coach, and then he got back in the portal. And fortunately, BYU's coaching staff had stayed close to him. They'd recruited him initially, and he ended up going to BYU, bringing his brother Tiger with him. So two of the brothers, just not Hank, they're playing on the team for BYU, and he is just, I mean, the fan base has just completely embraced him. Like we love Jake Retzloff. He did a lot of fun things. We embraced his grittiness, but the things that Bear is doing is just beyond what we've ever seen a freshman do. And taking a team to, at this point, 11-1, and just a really great season. He, in some ways, you could say he's a game manager, but they've really started opening up the playbook to him. He's been, it varies game to game. Some games, teams dial in on him. I guess it depends on the plan, but he can certainly sling it. He's had some really impressive throws and only 4 interceptions on the season. But even more so is he can run it, and he is just hard to bring down. You'll see, if you haven't heard this already, and you'll hear it all throughout the broadcast, he wears the number 47, and it's because he wants to have that fullback mentality when he's playing, and he doesn't shy from the contact. He'll deliver it, and he has I should look at it. I don't even know. I think he has more. This last week he got to 11 rushing
touchdowns. Yeah, he's
on the
doing more
season.
than passing.
And so which is crazy because that was a record 10 was held by the likes of Steve Young and Taysom Hill. Not sure if you ever heard of them. So
Yeah.
this is, to pass them up in the record books for anything.
Hold on, not Hank Hill, Taysom Hill. No, just kidding. Since we're messing up the Bachmeyers.
And not Brigham Young, Steve Young. So
yeah, exactly.
He's just been really impressive. And usually when he has a mistake, you'll see him bounce back, and on the next play, just like come back. Like when he did finally have an interception, he came back the very next play, time BYU got the ball and he had it. He threw just a beautiful, impeccable pass. And so it shows he's just he's just unflappable and solid, literally and physically, and I guess metaphorically, but he is just been very consistent for the team. So in some ways you could say he's a game manager, but he's so much more, and he is critical to the success of this BYU offense.
Yeah, and he plays much better at home, right? That's the other part about this. Most teams do, but statistically speaking, he completes 66% of his passes at home. He's got 1,085 of his 1,786 yards at home, and he averages 9.2 yards per attempt. And I think that's the biggest number. Any offense that averages anywhere from a quarterback who averages above 7 yards per attempt is typically has the ability to throw, a long bomb. But in his case, in his particular case, any offense that is averaging 9.2 yards per attempt means you're going to win a lot of games. 158.4 rating at home for the season, or in conference, 135.3. And you guys have played some really, really, really tough opponents. He averages about 64% completion percentage, so he can complete the pass when he needs to, and that keeps the sticks moving. When he can do it with his feet, and as you said, the touchdowns are with his feet, but he can definitely he can pass the ball as well. All right, give us some thoughts on the strengths of your defense, and then we'll do offensive strengths as well.
Strength of the defense. So I feel like our biggest strength is our defensive coordinator, Jay Hill. He has just helped this team he knows how to put guys in position to create havoc. So it is said all the time that BYU is a lucky team on defense. They got this, they got that. But knowing how to have guys, well, one, scheme up ways to confuse quarterbacks, which, as much as I like to, follow the game and talk about it, there's things there schematically that are beyond my ball knower abilities, just way more in the weeds than I think we can watch without, with, the game footage and everything. But the things he does to try to confuse quarterbacks, and also just having guys that are able to make plays, that know how to be in the right spot at the right time is a big part of that. So, so that is a big piece. I would say our defensive line was that's probably one of the position groups I was most worried about from the off season. Even though we got Keanu Tanavasa from Utah to lead up that group in the middle. He's been a little bit underwhelming for much of the season. He's kind of turned it on as of late, and this team, the defensive line has just gotten better and better and started to continue to put more pressure on offenses. I would say where we really shine is our linebackers. The tandem of Isaiah Glasker, and Jack Kelly is just in terms of two linebackers. I don't know if there's another team that has two linebackers of that caliber, although I think Texas Tech would beg to differ. And after the way that game went, maybe they have a case. But both those guys have been a little bit banged up, so they haven't been playing full speed, I think, to their full capacity. But you see those guys when they're healthy, just unstoppable. And what's crazy is, as they've kind of taken maybe half a step back, we've seen just other guys continue to step up on this team and fill that role. And so there is just it's just guy after guy, I think, of kind of stepping up. And so that's a big thing. Then we got Tanner Wall at safety, and he just continues. He's our ball hawk. He continues to intercept and just make big plays, as well as Satuala, who's back there at safety as well. In fact, they're two of the guys, which isn't always a good sign when your safeties are leading the team in tackles, but these guys, some of that is because some of it's schematically that they get pulled up and looks,
run protection.
Yeah, exactly. And so some of that is by design, but they've been locked down as well. And so,
so for folks who haven't watched BYU's defense this year, they run a 4-3 or a 3-4. Like you said, they disguise blitzes. Can you kind of go over that on the basics of the defense? Is it like a 4-3 type of defense, or is it a 3-4? Are we playing nickel? And I don't mean to put you on the spot with that from the terminology standpoint, but just basic things about the defense that's making them a success.
Yeah, I feel like it often depends. Like against Cincy, a lot of times I saw us just rushing three guys, and I don't know if I've seen a lot of. I mean, we'll see a mix of it throughout games, but I felt like it was a lot more in that game. So it's clearly by design. They feel like they have the matchup, and they have a lot of guys that are versatile that gives them that. So, like for example, Jack Kelly, he has a great speed, and for linebacker, I've seen this happen the last few games. I don't know if it was happening earlier in the season and I didn't clock it, but he'd actually drop back into coverage, and I think it's he would drop back and then they might bring somebody else forward, and again it just goes to that trying to, I think, confuse the quarterback. And so there are a lot of different looks, and then we've also had to have guys, generally Jack Kelly, again because of the speed in certain matchups, to spy the quarterback as well. And so as far as what sets it apart, I just feel like from game to game, we've seen a lot of different looks, a lot of different approaches based on the matchup.
And that's good, and to your point, when you have the ability for someone to drop into coverage, whether it be a linebacker or, sometimes you'll see even in a cut like a quasi end, like a rushing end, do that because they have a little more speed to stay with the tight end. If you have players like that you can do that dynamically, it really can confuse a quarterback. And the biggest problem we have with Taven, where it's an advantage for you, is one, on the RPO game, he's been hobbled there. Two, he's got to buy himself time. So you'll see design rollouts to buy himself time because that offensive line isn't going to give him time. So you're rushing somewhere where he's not able to read from a pre-snap perspective. He may roll right into, into the defense if he does that. So that's one thing. And then bringing guys down, if you're bringing a safety down, you're typically overloading one side or the other. It's usually not GAT scheme, right? So you're going to bring that safety down, and our tackles, left and right tackles, have not played all that great. So if you guys bring safeties down from that side, it's going to make it difficult on Taven Jackson, and he's going to have to roll out. I think the key for you guys is if you can get pressure. I think this is going to be a 4-3 type of game. Although Cincinnati played a 3-4 front against us and dropped people into coverage and basically just said, hey, we're going to grind the clock out and try to get, if you guys get a couple of early long drives where you're burning a lot of clock off, then I would just set up as a 3-4 and try to keep everything in front of you, because it'll be a tough day for us to sustain those drives because of the penalties that we've had this year. Pre-snap penalties have killed a lot of drives because it keeps us from staying ahead of the chains. So, I feel like you guys have enough depth just from watching a few of your games. You guys have enough depth that if you guys were to go with the 3-4, and you get a couple of drives out of the gate, 1 or 2 drives where you're up, 7, or if you're up 14 points or 17 points by the half, it's going to be a long game for us if we haven't answered in that period of time. Because I think you can just keep everything right in front with a 3-4, and that's probably what I would play, since you have you have the ability for your linebackers to drop into coverage like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not where he looks most comfortable, but they have been doing it. So we'll see how that continues to go. Excuse me. But yeah, I really like this defense. There's a lot of guys. And like I said, there's been new faces that have stepped up this season along with the veterans, and been a kind of a revelation for this defense, and has helped it have that continuity from game to game, even as guys get banged up.
So talk a little bit about the offense. If you were to name what the strengths of the offense are, what would they be for you?
The offense is the strength of it is Bear Bachmeier, the tandem of Bear Bachmeier and LJ Martin. And so LJ Martin is our bell cow running back. He is a stud. He is a beast. For example, I mean, he was already until he got banged up, averaging 100 yards a game, over 100 yards a game. This last game against Cincinnati, though, he just did the lion's share of the work, and he had, I can't remember, it was like 32 carries, something like that, but it was for 222 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and BYU just kept giving it to LJ. And at the end of the game, when they're just clearly BYU has the lead, BYU is just trying to run out clock. Everyone knows exactly where it's going, and they still couldn't stop LJ, and he takes it in for another touchdown. And so that tandem, the two of them together makes it really difficult on teams, especially with that run game. And it goes right into BYU's strength. That's BYU's style of play, which is to hold the ball, run the ball, and eat up clock, slow the game down, and limit the amount of time that the opposing team can have the ball. And it's really playing that complementary football, and that's where this team does really well. Of course, BYU gets hit all the time and slammed all the time for not having style points from people not watching the games, people maybe not really understanding BYU and the approach. But that is all by design. Fans don't always love it or appreciate it, and also would like to see style points. But getting the ball, especially if you can get an early lead at all, and just continue to wear teams down. And really, when you were on my show talking about UCF and talking about coming out and doing well in the second half, BYU also seems to be oftentimes be a second half team. And a lot of that is because they just continue to run the ball and continue to wear teams down. And LJ just continues to come at them and come at them. And that's not to say we don't have receivers too. We do have a number of receivers, although last year a strength of BYU's was to really spread the ball. We would always have so many guys, getting catches and scoring touchdowns. And this year, the bulk of it's going to a few people. We've got Chase Roberts, who is our clear number one receiver. Although this year, Parker Kingston has really stepped up. He was a guy I didn't fully trust all the time. Obviously had flashes, but also kind of left you scratching your head sometimes. He has just been lights out. He's been so solid and a really kind of a safety net for Bear. And then we also have tight end Carson Ryan, who's there, that when he gets involved, he's a great blocker. He's a really good tight end, and he can also do it in the passing game. And he had he had a huge play this last week against Cincinnati, showing you he can do it. He can play both sides. He can set blocks as well as go out and score and keep drives alive with his hands as well. So,
would you say from the running game perspective that most of your offense comes from between the tackles or outside the tackles, meaning sideline to sideline or straight up the A-B gap?
I would say probably straight up. So BYU does like to do some kind of flair, a lot of plays, kind of gadget plays that you will, and a lot of those are more involve in some level. We do the tornado reverse is what it's called. A lot of times I saw the Chiefs run it 1 week after BYU did it, and that is about going around at the edges, because we have a guy, I already mentioned Parker Kingston. We have another guy, Cody Hagan. These guys were both track stars in the state of Utah and have a lot of speed. And so BYU really likes their speed to try and go around the edges. When it works really well. Cody Hagan isn't as decisive. Sometimes it blows up and doesn't go anywhere. But where both Bear and LJ, they don't do necessarily as well going side to side. Where they excel is running straight up the guy. And for Bear, sometimes it's just because we do those plays around the edge, you have to respect that. And it opens things up for Bear to run it up the middle. And then he just carries guys with him. Whereas LJ, he can see those holes, he can anticipate them, and he can cut hard and get through those holes. And then he can deliver contact and knock another guys down. He's another one that his yards after contact are, I actually don't know what the stat is, but it is, you just watch him and you'll see it takes several guys to bring him down. And so that's where both those players, I think, excel the best. And those are two of our best players. So I'd say up the middle.
Yeah, we've got some pretty good, as I told you earlier on your podcast, we've actually got some pretty good players that for A gap and B gap. We've got a pretty good linebacker named Cole Kozlowski as well that's really got a nose for the football and seems to always fill the right gap, right? Lewis is another one. He was an Oklahoma transfer who's also done really well. They both scrape really well to make sure that they're hitting the gap. Our challenge is the edges, so it'll be interesting to see how much of that they lean on early to try to wear the defense out. If you guys can sustain a drive doing that, it's going to be tough for us to do, because I would say the core strength between with John Walker plugging up the middle is going to be that A gap, B gap, and making sure we're stopping the running game. We do bring safeties up quite a bit as well in run support, and they're pretty good at doing that as well. We did lose some of our beef, though. We had even more beef up front in the D tackle position as well. But as we talked about in your podcast, injuries. So it'll be interesting if they try to take advantage of that. We had real trouble with K-State doing that in the edges. Now we have two really, really, really good edge rushers, both of which will probably play in the NFL. The last week or so, last two games, they haven't been as dominant on containment as what they've been all season long. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Former 5-star on one end and a former 3 borderline 4-star on the other end, and both of them play really, really well. We've got some rotation there too. But if you go up the gut, it's going to be tough unless you've just worn this defense down, because we cannot get you off the field. But if they try to do that as their primary weapon, it's going to be, there may be some 3 and outs early on until they switch gears.
Yeah, and that has happened to BYU some this season, and usually it is in the first half when teams can bottle up LJ Martin. But again, I think as time goes on, that run game just gets better and better and starts picking up more and more yards. So it is possible. BYU generally likes to start the game with an LJ Martin run. The Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator, he really loves to establish the run, and especially when you got a guy playing the way LJ Martin is, just really loves to give it to him and just really, I think, set the tone of the game from the very first play.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, it'll be interesting because it's strength versus strength there, right? So, but you're right. I mean, if again, it goes back to, can you sustain drives, right? And if you guys can sustain drives, especially early on, it's going to be a tough go for us during this game, and that's going to be vital for us to put some points on the board early. In general, what would you say? What would you say BYU fans? I know you guys are typically, well, every BYU fan I've ever met, it's been pretty nice, and complimentary. But realistically speaking, what does the average BYU fan think of UCF?
I don't know about the average BYU fan. I mean, I think there's some camaraderie, a level of camaraderie for I think of the 4 teams that came into the Big 12 at the same time. And so I think there's that. And BYU just loves being part of the Big 12 and loves the conference. And so I think that's great. I think there is not a lot. People remember the game we lost. I have to remember what year that was. And I remember because I couldn't watch that game. I had to listen to it because I can't remember. It was on whatever network that I couldn't get for whatever reason. But are you pulling up the Winspedia here? Let's see. I should have had that already because I know that was going to come up.
Yeah, it's 3-1 right now.
2014. Oh, was it really that long ago? Man, I remember that game. So, and now I'm trying to remember what it was that was, again, because I didn't watch it. So I've watched the highlights, but it's not one I've gone back to a lot. So I'm trying to remember the controversial or whatever, or something that fans weren't really happy about. But I mean, 2014 was a year that
it was a punt. It was something to do with the punt, whether it was fair caught or not, whether it was considered fair caught or not, and it got dislodged. But I mean, the largest margin of victory is 7 in the 4 games that we've played.
No,
that's what Winspedia says for UCF. For you, it's 26.
Oh,
so,
okay. Okay.
Yeah, and that was 2020 when you had that.
Right. Yeah, and that was a bowl game. And that
so it was 37-24 in 2024, 49-23 in 2020, which was a weird season anyway. That was a Boca Bowl. Then it was 24-31 UCF in 2014. Then 2011, it was 24-17 BYU. And that was the one. That's why I said the one in 2011, I think. And it had something to do with the kick return or punt return or something that ended up giving you guys the win. Not giving, but you know what I mean? Yeah. I'll have to look that up. I'm going to put that in the comments. Actually, I'll put that in the comments what it specifically was, because I remember what it was, but I don't remember the exact sequence.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. Those are 2 games, honestly, that I do not remember as well. You know, there's the favorites I go back to and watch clips or highlights from, whatever, over the years. And obviously the loss is not one of them. So I don't remember that quite as well at this point. And then, the 2011, I'm surprised I don't remember that one better, because that was shortly after I had left Provo. So okay, well, yeah. So anyway, that to answer your question, I don't know if there's a strong feeling. Obviously, the history we played a few games against each other, but it doesn't. We haven't overlapped a ton over the course of our history. Pretty far removed geographically. I think there's a lot of BYU fans that love Disney World, and so make it to Orlando, and so there is that.
There's a large population of Mormon faithful here in Central Florida as well. I mean, there is all over the country, but there's a rather large contingent here as well that are BYU fans. So you see that here as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. What about UCF toward BYU? What is the perception there?
Well, I think by and large, from the fans' perspective, nice. Like everybody seems to have a good experience. Never have a bad experience with a BYU fan, right? There's respect also because of that fact. It's one of the few fan bases that, see you next year. Congratulations, whether you win or lose, right? Really mean it. And so genuinely nice people. So I think from that perspective, as a program, absolutely UCF respects them, appreciates them, loves it when they come to town. I do think that BYU has a dirtier reputation as a football team with UCF because there always seem to be some injuries or things that were happening back in those games and the little extracurriculars back in the old days. So I think there's a little bit of a reputation there for that for BYU football. But as of right now, too, there's always a healthy amount of respect. BYU's always been successful in football. You had Lavelle was there, 36 years or something like that, and had averaged what was his bowl streak? It was something crazy. So, that's, I think from a football program perspective, there's a lot of respect there. I think the one knock they have is amongst UCF fans and other fan bases is that the feeling was that that BYU played dirty at times, little extracurriculars. But other than that, lots of respect, both for the fan base and the program.
All right.
You weren't expecting that.
No, I don't remember. I mean, if that's what you remember, but
yeah, no. I mean, that's it. I mean, but everything else, like everybody loves the fans. Everybody respects the coach. Actually, your coach is very well respected by the fan base, known by the fan base, very well respected by the fan base and the program itself. The mountains, everybody loves the mountains in the stadium. Everybody I've ever talked to that's gone up there absolutely loves it. I've been blessed enough to be in that area quite often. Have seen the Wasatch myself, and those areas up there, and absolutely love it. But generally a good opinion of BYU and the program itself, and happy to be here with you guys. It was kind of the same thing. You guys were trying to get in. You had the whole Utah thing and the Pac-12 being with Utah, and there's a thing there, and not being able to get in there, and then you went independent for a while, and I think BYU liked its independence. You had a pretty sweet deal with ESPN, but then at the same time, it's like when the playoff came to bear, it was important to get back in, and I think there is a sense of camaraderie with the four teams, although Cincinnati probably the least amount of camaraderie for us. They have kind of tried to turn this into a rivalry. And so actually, come to think of it, something we talked about at the end of the show with you is that whole Cincinnati situation. They kind of do the same thing with us. So it's a thing with Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati was another school we have a little bit of history with, but BYU's won all those games. Didn't have much of an opinion of Cincinnati. Maybe that sounds wrong, but just haven't had a lot of interaction, even being on the East Coast. Like, no reason to kind of like or dislike Cincinnati. But I guess I do now. I mean, it wasn't just the chant; it was all the signs they had before the game, and stuff, which isn't unusual, but it seemed like was happening more than normal. And it wasn't so much like any of those signs was that offensive. Like, I have thicker skin than that. It's like whatever. I was more offended by the lack of that they just weren't funny. you know,
Yeah.
they weren't funny. So if you're gonna make jokes at that, whatever, like at least do it and make them funny. But it was just crazy at the level which they took the approach at the religious aspect as opposed to, and the opposing team, whatever. There's so many other ways to attack, I suppose. But so I guess I shouldn't be completely surprised that broke out, but I was that it happened at Cincy. We're used to that happening against Pac-12 or former Pac-12 schools. That seems to be more common. So anyway, I guess I have a little bit more of an opinion of the Cincy fan base now, and I know that's not everybody, and it's probably a minority. And you could say it's it's college students, this and that, or whatever. They're drunk. I mean, my kids, no matter what the situation was, if I found out they were participating in something like that against any group, not in university, but a religious group or, um, you know, anybody like that and making bigoted remarks, I would be very, very, very disappointed in
I
my
agree.
kids. So, you talk about it being a place of higher learning. You'd think that it would be above that. And now, honestly, I will give a little bit of grace that I'm guessing many of the people that were participating in that may not even know almost anything about the group that they were they were going against and what they were saying but should have at the very least understood that it was a religion. And couldn't imagine that coming out against any other group. Had that come out against any other religious group and saying that, I feel like there would have been a lot of outcry from that. And it's unheard of. You wouldn't say like that about the Catholics if Notre Dame comes to town or any other group. So weird thing that happens far too often. And I'd like to say we're used to it, but certainly would like it to stop. I mean, I think the craziness is that BYU had and you'd pointed this out too, is spent just help raise and bring in and donate a record amount of food to the Cincinnati student
Food
pantry
bank.
to help
Yep.
feed the students, and then to turn around and do that. So it shows, again, probably ignorance from the people making that remark in the first place, but just to even understand the full situation of what was going on around them.
I guarantee you
Yeah,
they were
crazy.
ignorant of that fact. I got like the food pantry thing. Like I can guarantee you they were ignorant of that. But either way, like my take on it is, and UCF fans have had our fair share of faux pas, and I'm not making light of what was said. I'm just saying like mistakes or whatever that we've done, and I know I don't know what it's like for BYU fans. I can tell you for us, being in the South, college football is different than it is for like the Pac. The Pac, a lot of those schools are, basically Ivy West schools, right? And so the type of people that show up there and their attitude towards football is different than like the Southeast. The Southeast is very, it's, I don't want to mitigate this, but it's like a religion here in the Southeast, right? College football that's what you do on Saturdays. You've got rivalries. They're very heated. You do that. But there's a line, right? And to me that was a line. And I do think a lot of the kids, they're adults. A lot of the young adults that made those decisions, they will end up regretting them later on. But it's just sometimes it's a unfortunately it's a live and let live kind of situation that you kind of have to do, and you guys have done that throughout your history, so like
It is
I
true.
get it.
And maybe in some ways, especially living on the East Coast, I haven't ever faced personally something to that level. But there did come out that so recently, just a few months ago, there was an attack on a church in Michigan. Someone came specifically attacking members of the church, killing many. A family who was recovering from wounds from that attack was at that game, and then those chants broke out. So you have to imagine, for someone having experienced a very traumatic
Oh,
experience,
wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
stemming from hate, and then showing up in that environment, it is next level. Like when I hear it, I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, here we go again. But imagine for them experiencing that, being there in person, it would be significantly different experience. So I don't know. It's this weird thing. We deal with it, and then the universities usually come out with some canned response that doesn't feel super sincere. And then it was crazy because the Cincy Barstool account came out with a statement on it, and it wasn't like a satirical one either. A day before the actual university was able to come out with their Chat GPT response, and so it's
I did
wild.
see the Barstool. Yeah, I did see the Barstool response. And it seemed like a genuine one, right? And but at the end of and at the end of the day, I just hope it got to the point where the conference got involved. And I know, like, we heard chants the last time you guys played us at home from our student section. They weren't that, you know, but I definitely say I hope it's a lesson learned for everyone and a reminder of how to behave themselves when they're at a college football game. And there's certain schools you do that with, and there's certain schools you don't do that with. Like, for example, we say, I know this is a much different example, but when we were in the AAC, we played Navy. When we went to Navy Marine Corps Stadium, we always say home of the Knights. You didn't say that in Navy Marine Corps Stadium. Now, again, it's a much smaller example, but there's just certain respect levels you have for people.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, it's college sports. It is college students. People are having fun. They're going to taunt. My preference is a little bit more focus on cheering on my team than trying to tear down the other team. And that's just maybe because I'm worried about jinxing it as well. But I'm not saying I haven't ever participated in that. I'm just saying that's generally my preference. And I get it. But when you say those things about the institution, you may, that's not really my flavor. But I get it. Those things happen. I don't think it's a non-issue. Nobody says anything. But when it happens, towards a religion, that's a little bit different, especially when most of the team, or I wouldn't say most, much of the team, including, guys like a Bear Bachmeyer and the kind of the face of the program aren't. And so, I don't know. Last year we had a Jewish quarterback. I don't know. So it's just a weird thing. It's a weird taunt, but it happened, and I don't know. We keep rolling. We still love the Big 12.
It's not how we feel. So let's just, we'll put that out there for Night Nation. And I think
I appreciate it.
The talk here was that's over the line. You know what I mean? So
it's just weird. It's a weird thing that it happens and that there's such focus on that. But like I said, I haven't been in a situation, even at like Tennessee, haven't faced things like that. And I just, had plenty of taunting going on there, and it wasn't to that.
Well, I will say this: Tennessee's different, right? So another thing that factors into this for the University of Cincinnati, and I don't know if you know this, but they actually have their arch rival going back years and years and years and years and years was Xavier, and Xavier is also a religious school. So they are. So you said you don't hear that about other religions. I can tell you this right now, knowing the rivalry between those two schools. They don't say the same thing, but they see similar things when it comes to Xavier. So
interesting. Well, I'm learning more and more about Cincy.
Yeah. And that's part of their rivalry. It goes way, way, way back, right? Like, I mean, we're talking, I think, over 100 years. So I think they may be less attuned to it or understand it differently, because I think a lot of that's been going on with Xavier. And the only reason I know that is because my family's from the Cincinnati area. Okay. So my cousin actually used to work at the University of Cincinnati in supporting the athletic department. So I know a little bit more history about Cincinnati specifically than most. That's why it's Night Bengal, right? Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. So, all right. So what do you expect? Who do you expect to win? And what do you expect the score to be? And we already talked about the special food, so let's focus on the scores for now.
So I haven't made up a specific. I always need to do that. I always wait, and then I'm on the spot trying to come up with a score. But here's what I'll say. I'm not making this as a prediction as much of this is what I need to happen. BYU needs, because I'm sure you're well aware of the situation they're at, locked in at number 11. Regardless of the case that BYU can make for some of the teams ahead of them, it will never be good enough. They really need to get in at the possibility of getting in and at large. They need to go in and at the very least, if they're going to lose to Tech in the conference championship game, it has to be they have to win this game. They have to lose to Tech by, maybe it would have to be like overtime or by like last second field goal, right? Or something like that. Have a really strong showing and need some help in front of them with teams, getting maybe an embarrassing loss or whatever in front of them. BYU could find their way moving up into that top 10, which is where they have to be because of the ACC rep and the G6 rep are most likely ranked outside of that top 12. And so BYU's got to get into the top 10, which seems like at this point, the committee new rankings came out tonight as we're recording. And there's just, it's not happening. BYU has to go and win out. And so while style points don't matter, I need this team to come out to show that they're locked in, that they're playing at another level, kind of like they did against TCU. Even though the score was a little bit closer, they really dominated Cincinnati through most of that game and really were the more physical team. So I need BYU to come out big, firing on all cylinders, take this game seriously, and not let up because UCF doesn't have as impressive of a record as some of these other teams. And I expect UCF to come out playing with everything it has. It's the last game of the season. Unless they can get this win, they're playing for that bowl win. And these guys have a lot to be playing for. And so I don't expect this to be just a gimme. I don't expect UCF to roll over. And so BYU's got to come out locked in, and I believe they will be. So I have to my picks at the beginning of the week was that BYU's going to cover.
Ooh, they need to show an 18-point spread. I think
it's 17.5 is where I last saw it, but and that is big. And so I'm trying to do the math in my head. So I'm trying to think here. Let's see, which is always a bad idea to do while you're recording something. So I'm gonna say 32-13. So that'll just kind of get past and cover the spread there. So it very well could be much closer than that, but I do expect BYU to win. They have everything on the line. They know what it was like to be so close last year and let it slip away. I don't expect them to do that again this year.
Awesome. All right. That brings us to the end of this particular segment. So we'll talk again. And obviously for more contact with both of us involved in the Big 12 Huddle, you'll find it. But other than that, where can people find you and all of the content that you put out? Because you put a whole lot more out than we do.
Yeah. So I post all my stuff on YouTube. Both my YouTube as well as Twitter handles is at Sats Warrior BYU. I need to make that a little bit easier a handle, but it's at Sats Warrior BYU. It's BYU, or it's Saturdays Warrior is the channel, and so I'm on Twitter as well. But yeah, most of my content, you can get it all right there on YouTube. So come join us. We love chatting all things Big 12. We do live reactions after games. So if you want to join us after and talk about the game, please do.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Trevor. We appreciate you doing this with us tonight, obviously, and I always have a good time talking to you. Yeah, so thanks for sharing it with the fans. And we'll leave it at this. Good luck this weekend for a lot of reasons. I won't be mad if BYU wins, but I'd sure like the Knights to win. I think most of us just feel like that the season is what it is, and we're ready to get on to the next one. That being said, we're looking forward to watching the game. It's the last one for the season. It's always a long off season until we get to next season. And it's usually talking about realignment or NIL or other non-fun stuff. So, have a great weekend. Good luck. And I'll probably check in with you after the game for your live show. So go Knights and
go Cougs.
All right. Charge on.